I'm sitting in the waiting room at St. Mary's Hospital, my hands shaking so badly I can barely hold my phone. 3 hours ago, my son Alex sent me a text that made my heart stop. "Mom, I need to tell you something. Meet me at St. Mary's Hospital. It's about Stephanie. I drove here breaking every speed limit, my mind racing through worst-case scenarios. Car accident, heart attack. Something terrible had happened to my daughter-in-law, and Alex needed his mother. But when I found him, he wasn't in the emergency room. He was in the hospital's financial counseling office, sitting across from a woman in a blazer with a stack of pamphlets about experimental cancer treatments. That's when my son looked at me with tears in his eyes and said the words that would change everything. Mom, Stephanie has stage 3 cancer. We need $200,000 for a clinical trial. It's her only chance." Backstory: the before times. Let me back up. My name is Emily Thompson. I'm 68 years old, and for most of my life I thought I knew exactly who I was. A devoted wife, a loving mother, a woman who'd built a good life through hard work and sacrifice. My husband Robert died 4 years ago. Massive stroke, completely unexpected. One minute he was laughing at something on TV, the next minute he was gone. Just like that, 42 years of marriage ended. The grief nearly killed me. But I survived it the way women of my generation do. We put one foot in front of the other. I built a routine. Coffee on the front porch every morning, watching the neighborhood wake up. Volunteering at the public library on Tuesdays and Thursdays. Book club with Linda Martinez and the girls every other Wednesday. And Sunday dinners. Always Sunday dinners. Alex would come over every week, and we'd sit at the same table where Robert and I raised him. I'd make pot roast or chicken parmesan, and we'd talk about his work, his life, his dreams. Those dinners were my anchor. Proof that I wasn't completely alone in this world. Then 2 years ago, Alex married Stephanie. Don't get me wrong, I was happy for him. She was beautiful, successful, confident. A strategic marketing director at some tech company downtown. She wore designer clothes and talked about personal brands and networking events. She was everything I wasn't: polished, ambitious, modern. At their wedding, she called me Mom and hugged me tight. "I'm so lucky to be part of this family," she said. "Alex is so blessed to have you." I believed her. The changes started small. The Sunday dinners became every other week, then once a month. "Sorry, Mom, Stephanie has a work thing." "Sorry, Mom, we're meeting with her parents." "Sorry, Mom, we're just exhausted." The phone calls that used to come daily became weekly, then sporadic. When we did talk, I could hear the shift in Alex's voice. Distracted. Rushed. Like I was just another item on his to-do list. I told myself it was normal. He was 34, building his career in commercial real estate. Newly married. Of course he needed space. I remembered being that age, caught between my parents' expectations and my own life with Robert. But then came the money. The loans. 8 months ago, Alex showed up at my house on a Tuesday evening unannounced. That should have been my first warning sign Alex never dropped by without calling first anymore. "Mom, I need to talk to you about something." He sat at the kitchen table, his leg bouncing nervously. "Stephanie and I found our dream home, a beautiful condo in the new development downtown, but we need help with the down payment." "How much?" I asked, already reaching for my purse. $25,000. "I know it's a lot, but we'll pay you back. 2 years max, I promise." I looked at my son, my only child, the baby I'd held through countless sleepless nights, the boy Robert had taught to ride a bike, the young man who'd cried on my shoulder after his first heartbreak. How could I say no? I transferred the money the next day. 5 months ago, he called again. "Mom, I hate to ask, but Stephanie's in a bind. Her company downsized and she's between jobs. We've got $35,000 in credit card debt, and the interest is killing us. If we don't pay it off, it'll destroy our credit." "Is she okay?" I asked. "Does she need help finding a new job I could ask around?" No, she's got interviews lined up. We just need to get through this rough patch. Please, Mom. I wouldn't ask if we weren't desperate." I withdrew the money from my retirement account. $35,000. A significant chunk of what Robert and I had saved over 40 years of marriage. "Thank you, Mom. You're saving us. I'll pay you back, I swear." 2 months ago, just 8 weeks before that phone call about the hospital, Alex called at 10 at night. "Mom, I'm so sorry to bother you, but we have a medical emergency. I can't explain everything right now, but we need $18,000. It's urgent." "Alex, what's wrong? Is someone hurt?" "I can't get into it over the phone. Please, Mom, can you transfer the money tonight?" I did. No explanation, no follow-up, just silence. When I added it up, sitting alone in my kitchen one night, the numbers made my stomach turn $78,000 in less than a year. Not a single dollar repaid, not even a conversation about repayment. And I'd never been invited to see the dream condo. Never met Stephanie's new employer when she supposedly found another job. Never heard another word about the medical emergency. But I pushed those thoughts away. He was my son. Family helps family. That's what you do. The cancer diagnosis. So when Alex texted about meeting at the hospital, when he told me Stephanie had cancer, when he said they needed $200,000 for a clinical trial that might save her life, what choice did I have? The financial counselor spread brochures across the table. The trial isn't covered by insurance, she explained. It's experimental, but the success rates are promising. However, the upfront cost is substantial. I looked at Alex. His eyes were red, his face drawn. My son was in pain watching his wife face a death sentence. I'll do it, I said. Mom, his voice cracked. Are you sure it's so much money? She's your wife. She's family. Of course I'm sure. That night I went home and logged into my bank account. The number on the screen represented everything Robert and I had built together. His life insurance policy, our retirement savings, the safety net we'd created so I'd never have to worry in my old age. $340,000. That's what was left after the previous loans. I heard Robert's voice in my head as clear as if he were sitting beside me. Take care of yourself first, Em. You can't pour from an empty cup. But this was different. This was life and death. I called Patricia Thornton, my attorney, the next morning. I need to draft a loan agreement. Emily, this is your son. Do you really need a formal contract? Yes, I said firmly. $200,000 is too much to do on a handshake. I need this in writing. When Alex came over to sign the papers, I noticed the hesitation. Just a flicker, but it was there. His hand hovered over the signature line for a beat too long. Alex, is something wrong? No, Mom. Of course not. I hate that it's come to this, that we need this from you. He signed. But that hesitation stayed with me like a splinter under my skin. I transferred the money that afternoon. $200,000. Gone in a single click. Christmas. 3 weeks later, it was December 23rd. I spent the entire day preparing for Christmas. I bought presents, a cashmere sweater for Alex, a silk scarf for Stephanie. I planned the menu: honey-glazed ham, Robert's mother's famous sweet potato casserole, homemade apple pie. I decorated the house, putting up the same ornaments I'd used for 35 years. The little wooden reindeer Alex made in 3rd grade. The crystal snowflake Robert gave me on our first Christmas together. I set 3 places at the table. At 6 o'clock on Christmas Eve, my phone buzzed. A text from Alex. Mom, we can't make it tonight. Stephanie's treatment is really taking a toll on her. We're spending Christmas at her parents' house. They're helping us through this difficult time. They understand what we're going through. I read it 3 times. They understand what we're going through. Not we wish we could be there. Not we'll miss you. Not even Merry Christmas, Mom. Just a simple declaration that Stephanie's parents understood something I apparently didn't. I sat down at my beautifully set table looking at the empty chairs. The ham was in the oven, filling the house with a smell that now made me feel sick. All those presents under the tree wrapped with care. And I was alone. My phone was still in my hand. I should text back something supportive. Of course, take care of Stephanie. Sending love. That's what a good mother would say. But I couldn't move. I couldn't breathe. Something was wrong. Something had been wrong for months, maybe years, and I'd been too afraid or too desperate to see it. I looked around my empty house at the Christmas lights twinkling in the window, at the stockings I'd hung for people who couldn't even be bothered to say Merry Christmas. And for the first time in my life, I asked myself a question that terrified me. What if I'd been wrong about everything? What if the son I'd raised, the boy I'd loved and sacrificed for, wasn't who I thought he was? What if those words, "They understand what we're going through," weren't about Stephanie's cancer at all? I sat there as the December darkness fell, my Christmas dinner slowly overcooking in the oven, and felt something shift deep inside me. The next morning, I didn't send a supportive text. I didn't call to check on Stephanie. Instead, I opened my laptop, logged into my email, and typed 3 words into Google: private investigator near me. Because I needed to understand what exactly Stephanie's parents understood that I didn't. and I was about to find out the truth would destroy everything I thought I knew about my son. James Rodriguez's office wasn't what I expected. I'd pictured something from a noir film, dim lighting Venetian blinds, a bottle of whiskey in the desk drawer. Instead, it was a clean, modern space on the third floor of a professional building with family photos on the desk and a Stanford law degree on the wall. "Mrs. Thompson," he said, shaking my hand with a firm grip. "Tell me what's going on." I laid it all out. The loans, the cancer diagnosis, the Christmas text, the feeling in my gut that something was terribly wrong. "I know this sounds paranoid," I said, my voice shaking. "I know I should trust my son, but I need to know the truth." James didn't judge. He just pulled out a legal pad and started taking notes. "Do you have Stephanie's full name, date of birth, if you know it?" "Stephanie Marie Thompson. She turned 32 in September." "And what hospital did Alex say she's being treated at?" He didn't specify, just said it was a clinical trial. James wrote something down, then looked up at me. "Mrs. Thompson, I'm going to be honest with you. What you're describing, the vague explanations, the escalating money requests, the sudden distance, these are red flags. I see this pattern a lot in elder financial abuse cases." "Elder abuse?" The words hit me like a slap. "Alex wouldn't, he's my son." "I'm not saying that's what this is," James said gently. "But I've been doing this for 20 years and I've learned to trust patterns. Let me do some digging. I'll call you in 5 days." Those 5 days were the longest of my life. I barely slept. Every time my phone rang, I jumped, expecting it to be James with news, or Alex somehow knowing what I'd done, calling to yell at me for not trusting him. But my phone stayed mostly silent. Alex didn't call, didn't text, not even to say thank you for the money that was supposed to be saving his wife's life. On day 5, Linda Martinez found me sitting on my front porch at 7 in the morning, still in my bathrobe. "Emily, honey, are you okay?" She sat down beside me, her nurse's instinct kicking in. She touched my forehead like I might have a fever. "I did something," I whispered. "I hired a private investigator to look into Alex and Stephanie." I expected shock, judgment. Instead, Linda squeezed my hand. "Good. Good, yay!" My sister went through something similar with her husband 10 years ago. She knew something was off, but everyone kept telling her to trust him. "He's your husband, don't be paranoid." By the time she finally checked, he'd drained their accounts and left her with nothing. Linda's face was serious. "Trust your gut, Emily. A mother's instinct is rarely wrong." At 10 o'clock that morning, James called. "Can you come to my office?" "Just tell me over the phone," I said, gripping the counter. "I can't wait." There was a long pause. "Mrs. Thompson, I think you should sit down." I sat. "Stephanie Thompson doesn't have cancer." The world tilted. "What? I've checked every hospital database in a 100-mile radius. No patient named Stephanie Thompson. No clinical trials matching what your son described. I also ran her social media, which is public, by the way. She posted photos from a spa resort in Napa Valley last weekend. She looks perfectly healthy." My vision blurred. "That's impossible. Alex wouldn't lie about something like this. He wouldn't." "Mrs. Thompson, I'm sending you screenshots right now. I'm sorry." My phone buzzed. I opened the images with shaking hands. There was Stephanie, radiant and smiling, holding a wine glass at a luxury resort. The timestamp 3 days after Alex told me she needed $200,000 for life-saving treatment. The caption read, "Much needed R&R with my love. # blessed in Napa Valley, living my best life." The confrontation. Phone call. I called Alex immediately. My hands were shaking so hard I almost dropped the phone. He answered on the 4th ring. "Hey, Mom. What's up? Where's the $200,000, Alex?" Silence. "Mom, what are you talking about?" "The money I gave you for Stephanie's cancer treatment." "Where is it?" It's for her treatment. I told you that." "Why are you asking? Why was Stephanie at a spa resort in Napa Valley last weekend if she's supposedly dying of cancer?" The silence that followed was deafening. I could hear him breathing, hear the gears turning as he tried to figure out what to say. "Mom, who told you that, did someone—" "I hired a private investigator, Alex." My voice was ice. "Stephanie doesn't have cancer. There's no clinical trial. There's no treatment. So I'm asking you one more time, where is my money?" "You hired an investigator." His voice shifted from defensive to angry. "You spied on us on your own son. Don't you dare turn this around on me. I want the truth. Right now." "I can't believe you'd do this." After everything we've been through, you don't even trust. Show me her medical records, Alex. Right now. If I'm wrong, if I've made a horrible mistake, show me proof and I'll apologize. I'll get on my knees and beg your forgiveness. Nothing. That's what I thought, I said quietly. You lied to me. You told me your wife was dying so I'd give you money. What kind of person does that? What kind of son? Mom, it's not what you think. Let me explain. If we could just meet in person. No, I want the truth right now, or I'm hanging up and calling my lawyer. I'll call you back, he said quickly. Just give me an hour to... Alex. The line went dead. He never called back. Emily takes action. I sat in Patricia Thornton's office the next morning, the loan agreement spread between us. Patricia read through it slowly, her expression growing darker with each line. This is a legally binding contract, she said finally. You can sue for the full amount plus interest. I don't want to sue my son, I whispered. I just want the truth. Emily, Patricia's voice was kind but firm. She'd been my attorney for 15 years, had handled Robert's estate, knew my whole history. I need you to hear this. What Alex did is financial exploitation. It might even qualify as elder abuse under state law. He's not abusing me. He's my son. He made a mistake. A mistake is forgetting your birthday. This is calculated fraud. She pulled out a legal pad. I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest. Does Alex have access to any of your other accounts? My blood ran cold. We have 2 joint accounts, from years ago before he got married. I kept meaning to remove his name, but I never got around to it. How much is in those accounts? I pulled out my phone and checked my banking app. My hands started shaking again. $140,000, I whispered. Patricia's jaw tightened. Emily, I need you to close those accounts today, right now. Transfer every penny into accounts with only your name. But that's his money too. We opened those accounts for... It's your money, your name, your deposits. He has access, but he hasn't contributed a dime, has he? She was right. Those accounts had been opened decades ago for emergencies, but every deposit had come from me and Robert. What else? Patricia asked. Life insurance. Is he a beneficiary? He's the sole beneficiary. After Robert died, I updated everything to go to Alex. We need to change that. Today. Patricia started making a list. Here's what we're going to do. First, close all joint accounts. Second, remove Alex as beneficiary on your life insurance. Third, draft a new will that protects your assets. And fourth, she looked at me seriously. You need to prepare yourself. When Alex realizes what you've done, he's going to come for you. Probably with Stephanie. They're going to try to manipulate you, guilt you, maybe even threaten you. Alex would never threaten me. The Alex you thought you knew wouldn't lie about his wife having cancer either. She was right. I didn't know my son at all anymore. By 3 o'clock that afternoon, I'd closed both joint accounts and transferred $140,000 into a new account. Alex's name was nowhere on it. Combined with the original accounts he couldn't access, I'd protected $380,000. But I'd already lost $200,000 to whatever lie Alex was living. The detective. 3 days passed. I didn't hear from Alex. Didn't hear from Stephanie. The silence was somehow worse than any confrontation would have been. I was making coffee on a Thursday morning when my doorbell rang. Through the peephole, I saw a man in his 40s wearing a suit and holding a badge. My first thought was that something had happened to Alex, that he'd hurt himself or worse. I threw open the door. Is my son okay? The man looked surprised. Mrs. Thompson, I'm Detective William Foster with the County Sheriff's Office. Your son is fine as far as I know, but I need to talk to you about him. May I come in? We sat in my living room, the same room where Alex had played with Legos as a child, where Robert and I had hosted countless family gatherings. Now it felt contaminated somehow. Mrs. Thompson, I'm investigating a Ponzi scheme. Your son's name appeared in our records as both a victim and a participant. The room started spinning. A Ponzi scheme. Detective Foster pulled out a folder thick with documents. Are you aware that your son filed for bankruptcy 7 months ago? What? No. That's impossible. He just bought a condo. He and Stephanie filed jointly. They listed debts totaling $620,000. Credit cards, personal loans, a second mortgage on their property. He spread papers across my coffee table. During the bankruptcy review, the court-appointed trustee found irregularities, large cash deposits that weren't declared, expensive purchases made after filing. I stared at the documents. There were bank statements for accounts I'd never seen before. Highlighted in yellow were deposits $25,000, $35,000, $18,000. My deposits, my money. Your son claimed under oath that he had no family financial support, Detective Foster continued. That's perjury. It's also bankruptcy fraud, a federal crime. I don't understand, I whispered. What Ponzi scheme? What does this have to do with— 2 years ago, your son and daughter-in-law invested in what they believed was a legitimate business opportunity. A man named Ryan Mitchell promised 300% returns in 1 year. Your son invested $150,000 of his own savings. But Alex doesn't have that kind of money. He took out a second mortgage on his condo. Didn't tell you about that either, did he? I shook my head, unable to speak. The scheme collapsed 6 months ago. Ryan Mitchell is currently in federal custody. But before he was arrested, he'd recruited Alex and Stephanie to bring in other investors. Multi-level marketing style. They brought in 12 people collecting their investments, passing them up the chain. No, I said. Alex wouldn't do that. He wouldn't scam people. I don't think he knew it was a scam at first, but when it collapsed, those 12 people wanted their money back. $420,000. Your son is legally liable. The number hit me like a punch. $420,000. Almost exactly the amount I'd given him in loans, plus what I'd protected. Mrs. Thompson, did your son ever tell you why he needed money? Did he mention business investments, medical emergencies, anything that seemed unusual? He said Stephanie had cancer, I heard myself say. He needed $200,000 for a clinical trial. Detective Foster's expression darkened. Stephanie Thompson doesn't have cancer. We verified that as part of our investigation. He lied, I whispered. He used a dying woman, a fictional dying woman, to steal from his own mother. I need to ask you a difficult question. The detective leaned forward. Did Stephanie know about this? About the cancer lie? I don't know. I've never even spoken to her about it. Alex handled everything. According to our investigation, Stephanie worked in marketing for a company that was investigated for running a similar scheme 3 years ago. She wasn't charged, but she was interviewed. She knew exactly how these operations work. The room tilted again. You're saying she planned this? I'm saying she had the expertise. Your son had access to you. Together, they had everything they needed to extract a substantial amount of money from a vulnerable target. I'm not vulnerable, I said automatically. Detective Foster's expression softened. You're a widow living alone. Your son knows your finances intimately. He knows you'd do anything for family. Mrs. Thompson, that makes you the perfect target. The breaking point. After Detective Foster left, I sat alone in my living room for hours. The winter afternoon faded to evening. Streetlights came on outside. I didn't move. My mind kept circling back to one question. How did I not see this? I walked to the bookshelf and pulled out a photo album. Alex's baby pictures, his first day of school, Robert teaching him to ride a bike. There was one photo I kept coming back to: Alex at his college graduation, his arm around me, both of us beaming. On the back, in his handwriting, "I'm so lucky to have you, Mom. I'll make you proud." When had that boy become the man who'd lie about cancer, who'd commit federal crimes, who'd steal from his own mother without a shred of remorse? My phone rang. Linda. Emily, I've been worried. You haven't answered my texts. Can you come over? My voice sounded hollow. She was there in 10 minutes. I told her everything. The investigation, the Ponzi scheme, the bankruptcy fraud, the $420,000 in debt that my money had been used to pay off. He used me, I said, the words finally breaking free. Like an ATM. And I let him. No. Linda grabbed my hands. You loved him. You trusted him. That's not weakness, Emily. That's being a mother. I should have seen it. The signs were all there. The vague explanations, the constant emergencies, the way he'd show up only when he needed money. Stop. Linda's voice was firm. You're not responsible for his choices. He did this, not you. But I enabled it. Every time I said yes, I made it easier for him to— To what? Take advantage of your love. That's on him, Emily, not you. I looked at my friend, this woman who'd lived next door for 20 years, who'd brought me casseroles after Robert died, who'd sat with me through countless lonely evenings. What do I do now? I whispered. You protect yourself. and you let him face the consequences of what he's done. That night I pulled out the photo albums again, but this time I wasn't drowning in nostalgia. I was looking for the truth. I found it in the gaps. The missing photos from the last 2 years, the canceled plans, the promises to visit that never materialized. The evidence had been there all along. I'd just been too afraid to see it. I put the albums away and pulled out my laptop. I had emails to send, documents to organize, a lawyer to call in the morning. Because Linda was right. This wasn't about punishment. This was about survival. My son had made his choices. Now I had to make mine. The warning. The next evening, my doorbell rang at 8 o'clock. I looked through the peephole and saw them Alex and Stephanie standing on my porch. My heart started racing. I pulled out my phone and texted Linda. "They're here." Her response was immediate. "Want me to come over?" "Not yet, but stay close." I opened the door but didn't invite them in. Alex looked terrible unshaven, dark circles under his eyes. Stephanie looked perfect as always, but there was something sharp in her eyes. "Mom," Alex said, "we need to talk. I don't think we have anything to say to each other." "Please," his voice cracked. "I know you talked to that detective. I know what you must think, but you don't understand the whole story." "Then explain it. Right here, right now. Why did you tell me Stephanie had cancer when she doesn't?" Stephanie stepped forward, her hand on Alex's arm. "Emily, we can explain everything, but not like this. Can we please come inside?" "No." Her pleasant expression flickered. "We're family. You're going to shut us out on your porch like strangers. You used my son to steal from me. You're lucky I'm talking to you at all." "Steal?" Stephanie's voice rose. "You gave that money willingly. You can't just, 'I gave it for cancer treatment.' There is no cancer. That's called fraud." Alex pushed past Stephanie. "Mom, please. I made mistakes. I got desperate. But I never meant to hurt you. You have to believe that." I looked at my son, really looked at him. I searched his face for the boy I'd raised, the man I'd thought I knew. "Do you know what hurts the most?" I said quietly. "Not the money, not even the lies. It's that you thought I was stupid enough to fall for it, that you thought so little of me. I don't think that you used the one thing you knew I couldn't refuse. You weaponized my love for you, Alex. You turned my greatest strength into my greatest weakness." "Mom, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. If you'd just give me a chance to make this right." "How?" I asked. "How do you make this right? Do you have my $200,000? Can you pay back the $78,000 from before that? Can you undo the bankruptcy fraud? Can you give me back the trust I had in my son?" Silence. "That's what I thought," I said. "You need to leave now." Stephanie stepped forward again. "We're not going anywhere until you listen to us. We need that money, Emily. We're drowning in debt. If we don't pay it back, we're going to lose everything." "Then lose it." Her eyes widened. You made your choices. You committed crimes. You lied and manipulated and stole. Now face the consequences." "You heartless bitch!" Stephanie hissed, the mask finally dropping completely. "You're sitting on Robert's fortune while your son is losing everything, and you won't even get off my property," I said, my voice like steel. "Both of you. Right now." Alex grabbed Stephanie's arm, pulling her back. "Let's go." "No!" Stephanie jerked away from him. "She can't do this. That money should be yours anyway, Alex. It's your inheritance." "It's my money," I said. "Robert left it to me, and I decide what happens to it." I stepped back inside and started to close the door. "Mom, wait." Alex's voice broke. "Please don't do this. I'm your son. I'm begging you." "My son died," I said quietly, "the day he decided to use my love as a weapon. I don't know who you are anymore." I closed the door and locked it. Through the wood, I heard Stephanie's voice, sharp with anger, and Alex's murmured responses. Then footsteps, a car door slamming, an engine starting. Silence. I slid down to the floor, my back against the door, and let the tears come. Great gasping sobs that shook my entire body. Linda was there in minutes, letting herself in through the back door with the spare key I'd given her years ago. She sat beside me on the floor and held me while I cried. "It's done," I whispered. "It's really done." "Yes," Linda said softly. "It is." Outside, the December night was cold and clear. Christmas lights twinkled in windows up and down the street. But inside my house, something had fundamentally changed. I'd spent 68 years being the kind of woman who gave and gave and gave. The kind of mother who sacrificed everything for her child. Tonight, for the first time in my life, I'd chosen myself. And even though it hurt God, it hurt so much I knew it was right. The boy I'd raised was gone. The man on my porch was a stranger who wore his face, and I couldn't save him. I could only save myself. Patricia filed the lawsuit 3 days after New Year's. Alex Thompson vs. breach of contract fraud and financial exploitation. The filing made the local news, not the front page, but page 3. Local man sued by mother over cancer fraud allegations. I didn't read the article. Linda read it for me and told me it was fair, factual, and didn't sensationalize. That was enough. The legal process moved slowly, grinding through motions and counter-motions. Alex hired an attorney, a young public defender who looked fresh out of law school. He couldn't afford anyone better. The bankruptcy had frozen most of his assets, and Stephanie's family, once they learned the full story, had cut them off completely. They knew, Patricia told me after a particularly grueling deposition. Stephanie's parents knew about the Ponzi scheme. That's why they distanced themselves. They didn't want to be implicated. So much for the family that understood what they were going through. In March, the judge ruled on the initial loan amount, the $78,000 from before the cancer lie. This was clearly documented as loans, not gifts, the judge stated. The defendant is ordered to repay the full amount plus interest over 15 years at $500 per month. $500 a month. For 15 years. It would take Alex until he was nearly 50 to pay me back. But the $200,000 the cancer money was harder to prove. There was no documentation beyond the loan agreement which Alex's attorney argued was signed under duress. He's claiming you pressured him to sign, I asked Patricia, incredulous. He's desperate. They're throwing everything at the wall to see what sticks. In the end, the judge dismissed the fraud charges for lack of evidence. I couldn't prove beyond reasonable doubt that Alex had lied about the cancer, only that Stephanie didn't have it and hadn't received treatment. The loan itself was valid but unenforceable without proof of the false pretenses. It was a partial victory. I'd get back the initial loans eventually, but the $200,000 was gone. I'm sorry, Emily, Patricia said as we left the courthouse. I know this isn't what you wanted. I didn't want any of this, I said quietly. I just wanted my son back. But that son was gone. Maybe he'd never existed at all. 2 weeks after the ruling, I heard through Linda's extensive network of neighborhood gossips that Alex and Stephanie had filed for bankruptcy. Again. This time they'd lost the condo. They were living in a cheap apartment on the east side of town, both working multiple jobs just to survive. Stephanie, I learned, had filed for divorce. She'd moved back in with her parents, claiming she'd been manipulated by a troubled man. She even gave an interview to a local lifestyle blog about escaping financial abuse and reclaiming her narrative. The irony was so thick, I could choke on it. Finding herself again. But I wasn't focused on them anymore. I was focused on me. For the first time in 4 years, maybe for the first time in my entire adult life, I was putting myself first. Linda had practically dragged me to her book club in February. You're coming, she'd said. No arguments. You need to get out of this house. I'd gone reluctantly expecting pity and awkward silences. Instead, I found Sarah Chen, a retired professor with a wicked sense of humor, Jennifer Walsh, a former attorney who'd taken early retirement to travel, and Margaret Cole, a widow like me who'd lost her husband to Alzheimer's. These women didn't pity me. They welcomed me. My daughter hasn't spoken to me in 3 years, Margaret said matter-of-factly over wine and cheese. She thinks I should have left everything to her instead of splitting it with her brother. Some children think parents owe them the world. My son tried to get me declared incompetent so he could control my finances, Jennifer added. That was a fun year of legal battles. I wasn't alone. I wasn't even unique. These women had their own stories of betrayal, resilience, and survival. We met every Thursday evening. We laughed until we cried. We debated books and politics and whether Martha's famous lemon squares were better than Susan's chocolate chip cookies. They weren't, but don't tell Martha. In April, Sarah convinced me to volunteer with her at the women's shelter downtown. They need someone to teach financial literacy classes, she said. Who better than a woman who learned the hard way? I started teaching every Tuesday night. Basic budgeting, recognizing financial abuse, protecting your assets, setting boundaries. I watched women younger than my son take notes, ask questions, slowly build the confidence to take control of their own lives. "You saved my life," one woman told me after class. She was 28, leaving an abusive marriage, terrified and broke. I didn't know I could say no. I didn't know I deserved to protect myself. I hugged her and thought neither did I. In May, I joined Jennifer's watercolor class. I was terrible at it. My trees looked like green blobs, my skies were muddy, but I loved it anyway. There was something meditative about putting brush to paper, about creating something that didn't have to be perfect. "Art isn't about being good," the instructor said. "It's about expressing what's inside you." What was inside me was slowly changing. The anger was fading, replaced by something quieter. Not quite peace, but acceptance. I'd done everything right. I'd been a good mother, a devoted wife, a generous person, and still I'd been hurt. Still I'd been betrayed. But I'd survived. And more than that, I was building a life I actually liked. The letter. On a Tuesday morning in late June, 6 months after the confrontation on my porch, I found an envelope in my mailbox. Plain white handwritten address, no return label. I recognized the handwriting immediately. My first instinct was to throw it away unopened. My second was to burn it. Instead, I called Linda. "What should I do?" "That's up to you," she said. "But whatever you decide, do it with me there. Come over. We'll read it together." 20 minutes later, we sat in Linda's kitchen, the envelope between us like a live grenade. "You don't have to read it," Linda said. "I know, but I was already opening it. 7 pages, handwritten on yellow legal paper, the same paper Robert used to use for his notes. "Dear Mom, I'm writing this from a place you probably never thought I'd be rock bottom. Stephanie left me 2 months ago. She found someone else, someone with money and prospects, and no federal fraud investigation hanging over his head. She took everything that wasn't already seized by the bankruptcy court and moved to Arizona. I found out through Facebook. The divorce papers came last week. She's claiming I abused her financially and emotionally. Her lawyer is good, much better than mine. She'll probably get it all, the victim narrative, the sympathy, a fresh start. Meanwhile, I'm working 2 jobs inventory at a warehouse during the day, stocking shelves at a grocery store at night, trying to pay back the people I scammed. I know you're probably thinking I deserve this. You're right, I do. But I need you to know something, Mom. This isn't me asking for anything. Not money, not help, not even forgiveness. I just need you to know the truth. The Ponzi scheme was real. I invested everything we had because I wanted to prove I could be successful like Dad. He built a life for us, gave you security, and I wanted to do the same for Stephanie. When Ryan Mitchell promised those returns, I saw a shortcut to becoming the man I thought I should be. When it collapsed, I panicked. 12 people had invested because I'd convinced them. People I knew. Friends. Stephanie's cousin put in his kid's college fund because I told him it was safe. The debt was crushing me. I couldn't sleep. I couldn't think. And Stephanie kept pushing, "Ask your mom. She has money. She's sitting on Robert's fortune doing nothing with it. She'd want to help. She was right about one thing: you would help. You always did." That's why it was so easy to keep asking. The cancer lie was my idea. Stephanie suggested it, but I said yes. I wrote that text. I sat across from you in that hospital counseling office and lied to your face. I watched you cry and still took your money. I told myself it was temporary, that once I paid off the debts, I'd pay you back. But there was always another debt, another emergency, another reason to ask for more. I used the one thing you could never refuse: family. I used your love for me as a weapon, and I knew exactly what I was doing. The worst part, I didn't even feel guilty at the time. I just felt relieved. Problem solved. Money acquired, crisis averted. It wasn't until you closed those accounts, until you stood on your porch and said, "My son died," that I understood what I'd become. I saw it in your eyes, Mom. The moment your heart broke. The moment you stopped seeing me as your son and started seeing me as a stranger. I did that. Me, not Stephanie, not the Ponzi scheme, not desperation. I made those choices. I'm in therapy now. Court-ordered at first, but I kept going after the mandate ended. I'm learning about the patterns, the justifications, the ways I convinced myself I was the victim in all this. I'm working with a financial counselor trying to understand how I got so far in debt. I'm attending a support group for people who've been involved in financial scams, both victims and perpetrators. And I'm trying to become someone who deserves to be called your son again. Not for you. You owe me nothing. But for myself. I don't expect you to respond to this letter. I don't expect forgiveness or reconciliation or anything at all. I just needed you to know you didn't fail me. You were a perfect mother. I failed you. And I'm sorry. For all of it. For using you, lying to you, breaking your heart. For being the kind of son who would pretend his wife had cancer to steal from his mother. I hope you're happy, Mom. I hope you're surrounded by people who treat you the way you deserve. I hope you're finally putting yourself first. Because you deserve that. You deserved it all along. I love you. I always have. I'm just sorry I showed it in the worst possible way. Alex, by the time I finished reading, my face was wet with tears. Linda handed me tissues without a word. What do I do? I whispered. What do you want to do? I don't know. Part of me wants to call him, tell him it's okay that I forgive him. And the other part remembers standing on my porch alone on Christmas. The other part remembers the lies, the manipulation, the way he looked me in the eye and told me Stephanie was dying. I wiped my eyes. Can I love him and still not trust him? Can I forgive him without forgetting what he did? Yes, Linda said firmly. Love doesn't mean you have to let yourself be hurt again. You can forgive someone and still protect yourself. I thought about that for a long time. Emily's response. It took me 3 days to write my response. I drafted it a dozen times, each version different. Too harsh, too soft, too angry, too forgiving. Finally, I wrote what felt true. Alex, I received your letter. I've read it many times and I believe you're sorry. I believe you're in pain. I believe you're trying to change. But I also believe that sorry isn't enough. Not yet. You asked if you failed me. Yes, you did. But I failed too. I failed to teach you that love has boundaries. That generosity doesn't mean being a doormat. That being a good mother means preparing you for consequences, not protecting you from them. I gave and gave because I thought that's what mothers do. But I should have taught you that respect matters more than money. That honesty matters more than harmony. That real love includes accountability. So here's what I can offer you, not forgiveness yet, and not reconciliation, but a chance. Continue your therapy. Pay back what you can to the people you hurt. Show me through actions, not words, that you're becoming someone different. In 1 year, if you've kept your word, we can meet for coffee. Just coffee, neutral ground. We can talk, really talk, and see if there's a path forward. I can't promise I'll ever fully trust you again. I can't promise we'll have what we once had. But I can promise I won't close the door completely. That's the last gift I can give you, Alex, the chance to prove you've changed. What you do with it is up to you. I'm rebuilding my life now. I have friends who value me, work that matters to me, hobbies that bring me joy. For the first time in my life, I'm putting myself first. Not selfishly, but wisely. I hope you find your way back to being someone you're proud of. Whether or not that journey includes me is yet to be determined. Mom, I mailed it the next morning. Then I went to watercolor class and painted a sunrise, imperfect but hopeful. 6 months later, resolution. December came again. 1 year since the Christmas that changed everything. This time my house was full. Linda and her husband Tom, Sarah, Jennifer, and Margaret from book club. Even some of the women from my financial literacy class bringing dishes and laughter and stories. My tree was smaller this year, but it was beautiful. The stockings on the mantel had different names, my friends, my new family, the people who'd chosen to be in my life. At 7 o'clock after dinner, I checked my mailbox and found an envelope. Inside was a money order for $500, Alex's court-mandated payment for month 12. 12 down, 168 to go. Tucked behind it was a photograph. Alex wearing a volunteer t-shirt standing with a group of teenagers. On the back in his handwriting, teaching financial literacy to at-risk youth, paying it forward. Thank you for the example. I stared at that photo for a long time. Then I put it in my desk drawer next to his letter. I didn't cash the money order. Not yet. Maybe next month. Maybe never. The money wasn't the point anymore. The point was that he was trying. Whether it would be enough, whether we'd ever have coffee in neutral territory, whether our relationship could be rebuilt from the ashes, I didn't know. But for the first time in a year, I had something I hadn't had before: hope. Not hope that things would go back to how they were. That was impossible. Hope that maybe someday we could build something new. Something based on truth instead of need. Something where love didn't mean sacrifice and family didn't mean doormat. I returned to my party to the warmth and noise and life I'd built for myself. Linda handed me a glass of wine. "You okay?" "Yeah," I said and meant it. "I really am." That night, after everyone had gone home, I sat on my porch with coffee and watched the neighborhood lights. Somewhere out there, my son was trying to become someone better. Somewhere out there, the boy I'd raised was fighting to come back. But here now, I was whole. I was strong. I was enough all by myself. And that was the real gift, not the one I'd given Alex, but the one I'd finally given myself. The gift of choosing me.